Welcome back to the Laws That Matter. I'm Carissa Kranz, and we have a great show for you today. After interviewing vegan business owners and entrepreneurs from around the globe, business expert and podcast host Katrina Fox joins me to tell you all about vegan business and business in general. So, Katrina, without further ado, thank you so much for joining me. It's a pleasure to have you on. And it's a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Carissa.
I was recently on your podcast and being interviewed by you. So it's fun that the tables have now turned and I actually get to hear from you, someone who is absolutely interesting and has spent an incredible career interviewing some very interesting people. So I can't wait to hear what you have to say. So without further ado, who is Katrina Fox?
Oh, thank you, Carissa. It's a pleasure to be on your show, and I'm looking forward to our chat because I loved having you on my show. So this is great. So my background is actually journalism. I've been a journalist for around 20 years, probably 20 plus years now. And a few years ago, I started to become interested in business and entrepreneurialism. And obviously being a vegan for 24 years, I was attracted to vegan business owners. They were the kind of people I thought, how can I help them? How can I serve them? So I had one of those 4 o'clock in the morning kind of, sit upright in bed moments where I thought, I'll write a book about how to start and run a vegan business. And then when I woke up the next day, I thought, oh, that's bound to have been done before, what have you. So I did the research and no one had done it. So I thought, okay, that's obviously a sign from the universe that I had to write it. So that's how I started interviewing vegan entrepreneurs initially for the book. So I interviewed more than 60 vegan business owners from across the globe, all different types of businesses, service-based, products-based, etc. For the book, which is Vegan Ventures, Start and Grow an Ethical Business. And the idea was really just to provide a kind of how-to guide for aspiring vegan business owners, but also for existing vegan business owners. There's whole chapters on PR and marketing, for example, all of which stand the test of time. And when the book came out, I thought, oh, I miss interviewing people because having been a journalist, I've interviewed lots of people over the years, from A-list celebrities through to just, people from all walks of life. I thought, I miss doing those interviews. So I thought, I know, I'll start a podcast. So I started Vegan Business Talk podcast, which you were on recently, which was wonderful. And basically the aim of that, again, it's to provide in this case, a free resource, because it's a podcast, it's on all the platforms, for aspiring and existing vegan business owners and entrepreneurs to help them have strategies for success. So my guests share, how they started their business, their challenges, and how they've made their business a success. And people seem to really love it. It's popular. And I really love the fact, I just want to shout out to all the people who come on the show, yourself included, who are willing to come on and, share that information and share their strategies to create the world that we want, in which, of course, every business is vegan by default.
Mm-hmm. So I love a couple of things that you said. Once it came to you in the middle of the night, like a sign from the universe. So one thing I always say is we live in a law-based universe, and signs and synchronicity is evidence of the universe. And when we talk about these things, I say these are the laws that matter. So you got this idea in the middle of the night, but there's a big difference between someone who gets an idea and goes with it. So what was it that really gave you the perseverance and the determination to see this through? Because we all have great ideas that we're inspired by, but it's a different level of success and entrepreneurial vigor when you actually can connect the dots from the idea to execution. So what was it that really pushed you to that next level? Because you launched an entire career from this middle of the night idea.
Yeah, essentially. I guess because I thought, well, how can I use the skills that I already have through journalism to, create a business for myself, but also while serving people who I really want to serve and who are going to be making an impact on the world. And for me, that it has to be kind of default vegans. For me, that's, I think, is super important. But basically, you're right. I mean, obviously, people can have lots and lots of ideas, and I've had ideas over the years, but you don't do anything with them. I think it was just once I realized there wasn't anything out there, I became very excited. I thought, right, I'm into it. And what I did was I immediately reached out to people to interview them. Who do you know? I kind of got really kind of into it. And I think putting it out there publicly, because also we had, social media. So I literally put it out on all the social medias. I'm writing this book. Who should I interview? Keeping people in the loop. And I think once you do that, certainly for me, it was that accountability, because I thought, right, I've put it out there now. I've got to do this. I cannot look bad. Like, it was ego, if I'm honest, that part was ego. It was like, I cannot look bad. I don't want people saying, oh, Katrina Fox, she's really flaky, she doesn't follow through. Especially people who I interviewed. I mean, the lovely Victoria Moran, who I think we probably both know, who's a vegan pioneer. Bless her heart, she got up at 6:30 in the morning to do an interview. We didn't know each other back then. Someone had recommended her, and she got up at 6:30 in the morning to do a Skype interview for the book. So I was kind of like, right, people are now this isn't just about me anymore. Once I kicked off those first few interviews, I thought, these people have given me their time, their generosity. Some of them didn't even know me to begin with. They've got faith in me. They are placing their faith in me to finish this project. I have to do it. So I would recommend in a lot of ways. I know sometimes people don't necessarily want to share their ideas in case people steal them and all this kind of stuff. But for me, I think it's kind of like, look, just put it out there, because even if someone's doing something similar, it's not going to be the same, because only you can do what you do. So even if someone else, writes a vegan business book, which they haven't so far, but even if they did, fine. You know what I mean? They're going to offer, different information, and coming from them, they might reach a different audience. So I would say kind of, for me, certainly put it out there. And then, I gave myself a deadline as well. So I thought, right, I want to get this written and out there within 12 months. So obviously you've then got to sacrifice certain things. I wasn't going out as much. I was working really long hours, weekends. I had to say to my partner, Tracy, look, for these 12 months, I'm going to be full on doing this. And it worked. And I hit the deadline, I did it. But then, of course, the marketing then starts. But, the actual writing of it was done. So I think you just got to kind of, but I was driven. Like, I really I felt this excitement. And even when, it was like the wee hours of the morning, sometimes, 3 in the morning, and I'd been, working for hours on end, I still kind of, even when I was really tired, you just kind of feel it in your gut or in your bones that what you're doing is right. And you just got to keep going with it.
Mm-hmm. I have a couple of parallels with you. When I started my vegan business, BeVeg, it came to me in the middle of the night like a light bulb. It was like 3 a.m. and I wrote it down, and then I did Google research, and I couldn't believe that what I was working on and had come to my mind wasn't done yet. Same thing with the vegan law book I'm doing. You've got the vegan business book. How could no one have done a vegan law book in the United States? It's like, oh my God, I have to see this through. So, and one thing I think I really love is that you got this idea, you said in 2015. So that's not that
2014, and it came out in 2015. Yeah.
And your life completely changed since then. What were you doing before as a career?
Journalism. So I'd been working, I'm from the UK originally. So I started my career in niche journalism, in HR journalism. And then I worked as a freelancer, came to Sydney, Australia. And I've worked for various media outlets, both on staff and as a freelance writer. And in 2017, I wrote for Forbes for a year as well, specifically on vegan and plant-based business. So I kind of immersed myself in that sector. And obviously, becoming from a journalism background, my kind of, I guess, speciality is in helping vegan brands to become more visible, particularly through PR. So I do PR consulting, and I have a program, an online course, particularly for smaller, because what I'm finding is with smaller vegan business owners and entrepreneurs, they might not have the budget to hire a publicist or a PR agency, but that doesn't mean they shouldn't be able to get in the media. But a lot of them don't know how to pitch journalists, and I cringe, some of the pitches that I, get and have got over the years. So I created a program. So it was really kind of, honing what skills I've got and then transferring them. And I also do content marketing. So, I'll write articles and blog posts, around vegan and plant-based business. So I guess it was, taking the skills that I already had and then pivoting, which is the buzzword of 2020, which I did, I guess, back then, to seeing how I could help vegan business owners and entrepreneurs.
And how many interviews would you say you've done since you've started your podcast?
Gosh, I'd say with the podcast, well, there's coming up, we've done 150 episodes. So I think, and then plus the book, I think in addition to the book, I'd say maybe coming up to maybe a couple of hundred in total.
And how have you evolved with all these interviews and time? Do you find
I think what I love is that I always learn something whenever I do an interview with anyone. And I think I never go into an interview with any preconceptions. I just, I'll typically, obviously, I'll prepare, I'll put some questions together. But then depending on the person's answers, we might kind of, go off on a tangent. But I just find that people are generally willing to share because of this particular Vegan Business Talks, very specific type of podcast. So it literally is about the business. It can be about the entrepreneur as well. And sometimes people will share about that, but often it's really about the kind of, the strategies for success and how they made things work, how they overcame the challenges in regards to the business. And what I'm finding is that particularly vegan entrepreneurs, they're very willing to share. They don't mind sharing that, they stuffed something up and, and then this is how they overcame it, because they actually want other vegan businesses to be in the world. So they're very willing to share. I don't know that you'd get that necessarily with just regular businesses that are solely in it for the profit and are not really interested in the ethics or the impact that they're having. So I just find that, my interviewees, are very willing to share their information, and I always learn something as well from them, which is great.
Is there a common theme in all these interviews that you find with entrepreneurs and CEOs? I think lots of times, like even with you look like an overnight sensation, but I'm sure there's hurdles along the way that you might run into. And is there a theme? I mean, I'm not sitting there interviewing entrepreneurs and CEOs, but I am one. And I know there's a lot you have to go through and overcome. And people look at you like, oh, they're an overnight sensation or success. But the reality is, you just, in my case, you don't accept failure. You don't accept a roadblock. A roadblock forces you to just make a turn and to you have to be flexible and go with the wind and bend, and you can't be so structured. But I'm sure you have a lot of great advice, way better than me, because you've been interviewing and you're your own entrepreneur.
I think a lot of it is consistency. It's just being out there. Like I say, some of the people I interviewed for the book, they hadn't heard of me, but then once you kind of put yourself out there, and I think the part of it is consistency, because there's a lot of people coming into this field, as we know, and that's great. But some people are just coming into it because they see it as a trend, something to kind of make a quick buck off. And if they don't see results instantly, they disappear. Whereas, so what I find is, people want to know that you're genuine, that you're really kind of in it, because you're passionate about it and you're in it for the long haul, rather than a kind of fly by night. So what I found is that by just constantly, I think, sharing other people's stuff as well. So you're not just kind of all about, here's me, buy my stuff. You're kind of, sharing a lot of other people's stories. Then people kind of go, oh yeah. I mean, people often say to me, I see you everywhere. When I was in New York last year, when we could get there for the first Plant-Based World Expo, and I had lots of people come up going, oh, I love your podcast and I see you everywhere on social. Now in reality, I'm not necessarily everywhere, but I am quite active on social, and I'm involved, and I kind of around. And I think when people kind of like that, so they kind of see you, and then they grow to know, like, and trust you, as the the marketing speak goes. And so then they'll kind of recommend you or hire you or want to work with you. So it's literally a case of just kind of sticking with it. And I think that's why it's really important to work with people that you genuinely want to work with, and that you're passionate about helping and serving. And for me, that's, definitely, vegan business owners and entrepreneurs. And also more recently, I've created the Vegan Women's Leadership Network, which I started through COVID and then launched in July. And I'm really enjoying that. And we've got vegan women entrepreneurs, but also women that are working in jobs in the corporate world and for nonprofits. And I'm really loving that.
I want to hear more about that, because I've heard about that, and people have told me that I should join it. And I think this is a perfect opportunity to actually learn about it, because I've heard a lot about it. I know Nicole Rawling Roth.
Yes, she's a member. Yeah,
she's a member. She's a lawyer. I've known her for a decade. We worked together at a top law firm in San Francisco. We just, we go way back, and we just happen to have the vegan common connection. And she's an entrepreneur now in the vegan fashion and material innovation initiative. So I'd like to know. So tell me about the network, and what is the benefit of joining, and how much is it, and is it open to anyone? How does that work?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So yeah, look, I had the idea at the beginning of this year even though I've been working in the vegan business space for some time, that 2020 was going to somehow be really big. Had no idea how. I didn't realize it was going to be quite like this, but I had the idea I was going to be doing something within the space, but a little bit different. And I had the idea of kind of, around the kind of vegan women and leadership. And I was going to run a physical event actually, but then COVID hit. And then I had the idea to create a membership-based network, which would basically bring vegan women together and just help them to provide resources and connections so that they become better leaders in their field. Now that could be anything. So yes, it could be people who are high up in the corporate world. It could be people who own their own business, who are entrepreneurs, but equally it could be people who are working in non-profits or even doing cool stuff in their local community, to just give them the skills, the resources, but also that community and that network to support them. And I think one of the most popular things from the network is the virtual meetups we've been doing from across the globe. I reached out to some people to ask them for some testimonials, like why they enjoyed it. And definitely the virtual meetups have been really popular. Collaborations have been happening, because what happens is that, and I'm sure Corinne, you're in a small group with people, even if you can't help them directly, someone, or you can go, oh, you should go to that website, or, oh, I could introduce you to so-and-so. Do you know what I mean? We all kind of know people or resources. So what we're finding is that's happening, and people feel very uplifted after they've, done these networking events. And then we also have some live webinar trainings in all different aspects of leadership, personal branding, marketing, etc., as a bonus. So that's for the premium members. It's $15 a month or 150 US for the year. And there's a directory, there's a private LinkedIn group as well. But I also wanted to make sure that we provide stuff for people who may not be in a position to join immediately. So there is a lot of free stuff, free content on the public-facing website. We've got the Conversations with Vegan Women Leaders podcast, which is on all platforms and YouTube. And we've also got some articles, of which I wrote one about you based on the interview you did, because particularly your interesting background as a former ballerina turned super lawyer. So there's lots of free content there for people to be inspired by. And then when they're ready, they hopefully will be able to join in order to keep the network sustainable. And we've also got some gift memberships as well, which I'm going to be promoting coming up to Christmas, because I think there's a lot of people who would like to join, and it might be a nice gift that maybe their family or friend can give to them. And for everyone that we get, I'm also going to be doubling that. So I'll be gifting it to someone else, who may not be able to afford to join. And I'm keen for, it is a global network. So certainly to reach out to, perhaps countries in which, the membership fees may not be viable. So there's certain ways, to support the network, to partner with us. We're growing. And I think the vegan women's leadership space is growing as well, because, I'm not the only person doing it. It's been around for a little while. My friend Kathy Devine a few years ago held the first plant-powered, women's conference. So I think it's a growing area, just as we're seeing general women's networking and communities grow. I think we're going to be seeing, more people in the vegan women's networking and leadership space grow as well. And I'm just glad to be part of that and doing what I'm doing.
So much of it is about timing, though. So I think that there is a shift right now in the universe, and we're seeing it with the election. We're seeing it in the world. We're seeing it with veganism. Like you and I discussed on your podcast, I'm a lifelong vegan, but I lived as a closet vegan for most of my life. It's only in the more recent years that I'm stepping into my own skin and owning it. I think that this is while people might have done a lot of things in the past, it was not the time, or it's not ripe for success. But now the world is more open and in receiving mode to support women and to support veganism and to support women vegan businesses. So I think it's a really incredible opportunity. I mean, just look at me and Nicole, frankly. We were both lawyers at top law firms a decade ago doing securities litigation and prosecution as criminal law. And it's now, a decade later, we've both founded a vegan business, and we're trying to pioneer movements. So I think you're hitting the timing in a perfectly inspirational way. Speaking of inspiration, so out of all the interviews you've done, does one interview stick out as being particularly memorable?
Oh gosh, you're putting me on the spot now. Oh my goodness.
I didn't give you any prep time.
I think from the vegan business talk ones, I think it's hard to kind of just pick one, because they all are kind of really quite generous in terms of what we discuss. So I probably can't pick necessarily one, but I think they all are they're all pretty interesting. They're all kind of sharing some really great information. There's some really useful ones for people that I think would be helpful for people who are looking for funding, because that's one of the things that a lot of people, a lot of business owners are looking for. It's like, how do I fund my business? And often they're looking for investors. So I have got quite a few interviews with vegan investors, and I think they can be really quite helpful. I have interviewed Heather Mills, who's an amazing British vegan entrepreneur, and I loved her kind of she's very just open about everything that she says, and gave some really good advice. So that was a lot of fun. But they're all pretty cool. And even with the conversations with vegan women leaders, I'm really enjoying that, because we're not just talking business with that. Like, we're going a lot deeper into their own lives and how they've overcome adversity kind of generally, and their advice for vegan women leaders. And that's really fun for me as well. So I'm finding those really rewarding as well.
Mm-hmm. And how long have you been vegan?
24 years this year. And I wish I'd been a lifelong vegan like you. I know when you said that, it was funny. I think when I posted about you being a lifelong vegan, and then people were commenting going, oh, isn't that amazing? Oh, I wish I were. But you know what, having said that, I think we're all where we're meant to be. And, I obviously went vegan at the right time, but I went vegetarian when I was 11 without knowing what it meant. But it took me a while, even though I've been involved in animal rights activism in the late 80s. I don't know why the vegan memo seemed to skip me. And I went vegan in the mid 90s. I was on an animal rights protest on a coach from London to Oxford, demonstrating against this kitten farm that was breeding kittens for vivisection. And I pulled out a sandwich, which is Marmite, which is kind of like Vegemite. It's like a yeast spread. And I said to this lovely school teacher who was next to me, I said, would you like a sandwich? I said, it's Marmite and cheese. And she said, oh no, I'm vegan, I don't eat cheese. I said, it's vegetarian cheese. I said, there's no animal rennet in it. Then she told me what veganism was. And when she explained the dairy industry to me, I was horrified. Like, my jaw dropped, because I'd been involved in the feminist movement for a few years. And I thought, how come it's not part of that? Like, we're talking the hijacking of, female reproductive systems, stealing of babies. How did I not know this? So it was quite a shock. I was one of those people that pretty much, once I knew, I sent off for my animal-free shopper from the Vegan Society in the UK, because this was pre-internet. It was like a little guide, and my shopping took me about twice as long back then, because I was eating a lot of processed foods and checking all the ingredients. But I pretty much went vegan straight away, and for a little while I kind of beat myself up a bit. I was like feeling really guilty, like, how did I not know this? But I think we come to it when we do. And now when I think back, like, I remember that I wasn't born vegan, and that I can remember, what I was thinking or what I was not thinking, or not even aware of sometimes. So I try and use it to remind me to try and be a bit more compassionate, because I think the longer you've been vegan, sometimes you can be a bit more judgmental and forget what it was like when you weren't. But I love it. And it was definitely one of the best things I ever did.
But we all have that aha moment, right? Even when we're born vegan, we have that aha moment when we make it a choice to stay vegan. Because when we grow up in a world that's not vegan, and we're doing a disservice to the vegan movement if we isolate ourselves with just vegans. We must assimilate, right? And so there's a choice that has to be made. And I remember my aha moment. So your aha moment was over a cheese sandwich with little kittens. Poor kitten. I love that. And that was when you were 11 years old?
Oh, no, I went vegetarian when I was 11. So that would have been in the 70s. And then the mid 90s, it would have been about 96. Okay. So I would have been in, 76. Oh, I would have been 30 then. So, yeah.
But that's amazing back then. Veganism is only now really turning a corner. So and how many years have you had veganism as part of your business message?
Since the book came out, I think really since the past 5 years, I've really kind of honed in and, in terms of who I work with, I've even had vegetarian companies, or businesses come to me and say, oh, can you, help me? And I'm like, when you've gone vegan, come back to me, kind of thing. I will occasionally help someone if they're not, as long as their business isn't unvegan. So I did help someone who's a guy who was in the leadership space. He wasn't personally vegan, but like his business wasn't not unvegan, like, do you know what I mean? So I kind of like, yeah, okay, I don't mind helping them out. But yeah, so in terms of who I work with, like at a baseline, you've at least got to be not be unvegan, if you know what I mean. And then best case scenario, yeah, certainly your business is not, selling or producing or making anything with animal products in it, because I want to kind of show that is possible, which is why, if I'm interviewing people on Vegan Business Talk, their business has got, like, I've had like PRs, like publicists pitch me, and when I'll say, is the whole product line now 100% vegan for the company, and they'll go, yes, and then they'll go, oh, except for these 2 products which have got honey and thing it. So and then I'm like, okay, come back to me when you've switched them out. So I kind of do that to plant the seeds, and then they're like, oh, and it just kind of gets them thinking. But I want to show that you and reward those businesses that do it, because we want to show that, look, you can have which is what Nicole is doing, fabulous fashion, we can still look glamorous. I love sparkles and bling. We can have our makeup and we can have everything that we want, but we don't have to, harm animals and have animal products involved in that. And of course, it's better for the planet and it's better for people and our health, etc. So, yeah, I think that was a long answer to your question.
I love that you're vetting businesses to figure out how vegan they are, which is close to my heart and my business, which is traveling supply chains to ensure veganisms and doing root analysis and to ensure no cross-contamination and holding people to a standard and making them think through their process, because even when they think they're vegan, more often than not, there's a dot in the middle that's not vegan that needs to be swapped out. And it might seem insignificant, but the reality is it's very significant, because if you swap out that one dot, that one supplier, that one practice, it affects a financial pocket of someone else who then will lose a lot of business, and it all comes down to dollars, right? That's how our economy is run. So if you can swap something out with a vegan option, then the vegan option wins and the non-vegan option just lost an account, and they may rethink their practices. So
exactly. And I love what you're doing. I think what you're doing is incredible. The fact that you're doing it, to such that level, and particularly, like you say, at that manufacturing level, and bringing it back to the dollars so that they're doing it as a matter of course. So I think it's amazing what you're doing. I love it.
Thank you. Yeah, we're about to announce a new accreditation in about a week. We're super excited about
nice.
17067. It's a conformity assessment program. So I'm looking forward to seeing when that's absolutely official, but it's in the works and it's almost there. But that really is taking the vegan certification process to a manufacturing level that has never been done before. So It really puts it brings accountability and integrity to veganism, which is long overdue.
Brilliant. Congratulations.
Yes, but congratulations on what you're doing. And one thing I love that you just said is how you were doing a lot with the feminist movements and the women's rights movement, and then you made the connection to veganism and animals. And I don't know how you deal with this, but people will come to me and they will not like vegans because they think it's too strict or they're too extreme over the animals. And one thing that I like to point out on the laws that matter is that there's different types of law. There's animal law, and then there's vegan law, which is very different, right? And those that stand for veganism should stand up against social injustice because they find compassion for the animals, but they also find compassion for Black Lives Matter, and they find compassion for women, and they stand up against social injustice. So I love that you made the connection as someone that stood for women's rights, and then that transferred and your consciousness expanded and said, well, wait a minute, animals, how did I miss that one? So how do we help others make that connection? Because I think most people on this planet are compassionate at heart and want to be compassionate, but there's some switch that's just off in their mind, culturally, traditionally, whatever it is, that they just don't make the connection to the violence or food on their plate or on the clothes that they wear or on the makeup that they put on. How do we be a part of that shift? besides being
Yeah. It's an interesting one, and it can be tricky, and because I think particularly part of it, look, sometimes it is just convenience, and I know that sometimes activists don't necessarily want to hear that, which is why I love that there's now so many vegan businesses, and even celebrities are like bringing out makeup brands, and by default they're vegan, and I think we absolutely need more of that. We need products that are both accessible, both physically, as in not just inner cities, but places where people would normally do their shopping, and also financially, of course, as well. But I think some of it is about convenience. It's like, because say, for example, with other, like if we take feminism, do you know what I mean? So in order, to be a feminist, yeah, you have to shift your behavior, but it could be something as simple as, okay, don't say something sexist, maybe just change your language a little bit. But with, veganism and animal activism, we're actually saying to people, right, you've kind of, potentially got to change, what you eat, what you wear, what you put on your face, what you put in your skin, what you clean your house with. It's partly a convenience thing, I think, as well, that sometimes people can just get overwhelmed, or that, and they just don't want to know, which is why I think, again, having these amazing products that we can say, look, this is another option, and make it really easy for people to say yes. I think that's going to be, quite key. But I think as well, particularly with food, people often associate food with emotion. So for example, family gatherings, and, it can kind of upset them. And also I think deep down, I think sometimes as well, when you get that reaction, when you just say, you meet somebody new and you say, oh yeah, I'm vegan, or it just comes out that you're vegan, and their immediate reaction, I don't eat a lot of meat. Do you know what I mean? Or even the vegetarians, I don't eat much cheese. And you just know, you haven't said anything. You've just said a polite, hi, yeah, I'm vegan, all happy clappy. And they immediately go, and I think that's because probably deep down, they know that, or you're reminding them without, you're not hitting them over the head with it, but it's reminding them that, that they're participating in a system that's ingrained, but that at its root has violence at it. So, I mean, I just try and be really quite positive nowadays, and, just open the conversation, get people curious and asking about it, like, why are you vegan? I know it's tempted to kind of go, well, why are you not? But do you know what I mean? I don't think that really helps. I think it's a case of, just kind of saying, oh, well, I found out this, and using terms. My friend Claire Mann, who's a vegan psychologist and a brilliant communications trainer, she always says, use the word we. So it's like, I didn't realize how we are, so influenced by these industries, like, and it feels more inclusive. So you're not making it an us and them. But, I've had situations where I think there was a feminist conference here in Sydney about a decade ago, I think, and they were selling veal at one of the stalls. They went to dinner at a non-vegan restaurant. They had a speaker who was vegan. She was an MP at the time, talking about women's reproductive rights. And meanwhile, people are sitting around eating like animal products. So the next day, me and a couple of other animal activisty people who are at there did kind of raise that. And we said, look, can you make a motion at the next one? All the catering, everything has to be completely vegan. And someone was there from the meat packing union, and she was like up and up, like, no, we shouldn't. But anyway, the vote carried, but it was quite controversial. And it was like, gosh, it can be frustrating. It can feel a bit like an uphill battle. But I did have one person actually come up and go, do you know what? I hadn't made that connection between the reproductive rights of cows and babies. She said, I'm going to really think about that now. And I thought, oh, okay. So I think it's just a case of, we just have to keep showing up and talking, but also showing that, we're not just all, angry and, what have you, or buying into those stereotypes. We come from all walks of life. And I think that's becoming easier and easier now, especially with these vegan investors, who are like major business people who, you can't just kind of dismiss them as the sort of unwashed hippie brigade. Not there's anything wrong with hippies. Do you know what I mean? So I think it is becoming easier with people coming out of the vegan closet, I guess, from all walks of life. Yeah.
And how long have you noticed there's this shift of consciousness where people are like, oh, well, I don't eat much dairy, or I don't eat much meat? Because I know when I was growing up, it was totally different. It was, how do you get your protein? And don't you think carrots have feelings? And your broccoli screams when it's, cooked. And I mean, very different than now when I go out to eat, where people will say, do you mind if I order this on the menu? Or I don't eat much cheese. I'm more plant-based now too. So there's a shift in consciousness, like you just pointed out. But how long have you noticed that shift? Because it hasn't always been that way.
Yeah, excuse me. Well, I mean, to be fair, I mean, I think we still get from certain quarters those questions that you said, but what about this? What about that? But I think that's still there. And like, you know, I posted something not that long ago on LinkedIn. It was a vegan cheeseburger I'd had. And someone said, how can you have a cheeseburger if you're vegan? I said, oh, it's vegan cheese. And she was like, cheese can be vegan. So there is kind of still that, I think, in some quarters. But you're right. I think there is a bit more of a shift now. You know, like people will kind of say, oh, so, you know, I've heard, yeah, like you say, you know, oh, yeah, there are more plant-based cheeses. You know, do you know where I can get them? Or what are they made of? You know what I mean? I think the conversation has started to change probably over the past 6 years. I think in 2014, I think it was New York Magazine had the first headline, Is 2014 the year of the vegan? And I think that's when things really kind of started to shift. And then we saw a bit more of a snowball effect, I would say, probably between 2017, past 3 years, I think. It's really kind of snowballed. Of course, now we're seeing more the term plant-based is kind of coming in, and there's whole kind of discussions around that. And I've written about that for Forbes. You know,
they're really tiptoe in the plant-based labeling. I kind of have, you know, issues with, because I think it's a bit of a cop-out. So if you're vegan and you want to have vegan food, you don't want a plant-based label, because that doesn't mean that it's truly free of animal origin products. But it's a popular term for mainstream that don't, because unfortunately over the years, vegan has been so strict seeming. It seems like a sacrifice. It has a negative connotation. So it requires people like you to get out there with your marketing and your business and to bring all these vegan brands to the forefront to make veganism cool, to make it hip, but which is what it is. But it needs a redefined media front and appearance.
Exactly. And you've hit the nail on the head there when you see a lot of people think about it as sacrifice. And look, maybe 24 years ago, it was. When I gave up cheese, like trying to find a decent vegan cheese back then, it was almost impossible. They tasted like rubber. And, you know, if I wanted a pizza, I couldn't have it without cheese. So now I make a point of, you know, I will order a pizza and now I can have vegan cheese on it. I'm sure most people think I really like junk food, because I only post, like, I'm not going to post my salad. Why am I going to post my salad? I eat a salad and a fresh fruit smoothie. I don't post that. But when I have a pizza or a cheeseburger, you bet I'm going to post it, because I want people to kind of go, oh, you can eat that if you're vegan. Oh, maybe, you know, or a nice big chocolate gatto. Oh my gosh, I can have that if I'm vegan. It's I think we absolutely have to demythologize, you know, a fancy shoe. I mean, I don't really wear heels anymore nowadays, but, you know, I like sparkly things, but you know what I mean? Like, you know, a nice pair of boots or shoes or something fancy. Like Rebecca Mink has some fabulous sparkly stilettos and flats. You know what I mean? You can post that kind of thing, and then people go, oh, that's vegan. And then you've got it, of course, with fashion, and I'm sure Nicole's going to be on that, is just, you know, getting the demythologizing that vegan shoes or vegan fashion is cheap and nasty and, you know, doesn't last for long. So I think it's kind of, there's lots of this overcoming those mythologies, but we're definitely seeing it happen. And I'm just so excited, you know, by organizations like Good Food Institute, you know, Nicole's Materials Innovation Institute. It's so exciting, you know, some of the tech that's happening to, you know, free animals from the you know, the consumption system, and which is also had a knock-on effect of being environmentally friendly as well, and typically also beneficial for human health. I'm not claiming that a cheeseburger is healthy, but I would argue that a vegan one is better than an animal-based one. So yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of exciting change going on, and we're really starting. I mean, certainly I've seen it even with journalism. Like sometimes I go to media events, like media launches and stuff, and I'll talk to like mainstream journalists, and I've had them. There was one where they tasted this vegan meat product here in Sydney, and they were like a real like mainstream kind of tabloidy journalist, and I just, oh, what do you think of it? I didn't know who I was. I said, what do you think of it? And he was like, do you know what? So I'd have had no idea. Well, that's not a very good Aussie accent. It's like, oh, I'd have had no idea, you know, if you hadn't told me that this was plant-based. And I thought, now we're making the inroads. So yeah, I think it's quite exciting. And obviously we're seeing a lot of these big meat companies coming in, like they're recognizing, the smart ones are recognizing that, you know, and even rebranding, like Tyson, I think, is rebranded as a protein company, not just a meat company. So I think when it gets to that level, like I've never seen anything, I'm sure you haven't either. We've never seen anything like this in our lifetime, where these big companies who otherwise, you know, vegan companies, vegan businesses wouldn't even be on their radar. Now they're investing in them, they're buying them, they're getting in, they're recognizing this isn't a fad, you know, like the Atkins diet or whatever it is, or, you know, those silly things. You know, this is an actual trend. This is here to stay, because people generally, like you said, they want more products.
I think you bring up a good point. I think Tyson was invested in Beyond in the Beyond Meat, and then he divested, saying he's not investing in their brand anymore. He's building.
He's going to do their own. Exactly. Yeah.
And I know JBS, which is the world's largest meat manufacturer, they launched Planterra Ozo, which is certified vegan by BeVeg. So, and they named it Planterra for the restaurant brand, and then Ozo for the store brands. So it's the same product, but they have them under different names. And those names are not associated with JBS. They actually bought out a Colorado-based vegan innovative lab to create these protein mushroom based pea protein burgers and ground meat that is going to now compete with all the other brands out there, for better or for worse, competing with the vegan brands that are that to catch, but the reality is it's a win. If the meat industry is starting to invest in the plant-based market, that's a win, because that's automatic and immediate distribution for us.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're going to get on the grocery shelves. They don't have to fight for the space. They're going to get into all the restaurants because their beef is already in the restaurants. So now the options are going to start to become available. And if they have wins, they're not going to resist the movement. They're going to resist the movement when it comes down to them losing money. So hopefully it's a win-win all around, as long as we continue on the course of what's karmically correct. So I have a question. With all of the businesses that come to you for consultation or PR or media help or branding, do you mostly have startups coming to you that haven't gotten off the ground, or early stage companies, or well-established companies that are just looking to get a bigger boost in the vegan sector?
Yeah, mostly the people that come, if they like one-on-one consult with me, particularly around, a PR strategy, for example, they're typically, in the startup stage, or they're kind of I guess you'd call them in America, the mom and pop level kind of brands, and that will come to me, and they maybe haven't got funding yet, so they kind of they're kind of looking how can they best spend in order to be seen. So some of them might be in existence already and just might want a bit of a boost over the Easter period or the Christmas period, for example. So they tend to be mine kind of like in the startup stage. I work a lot with like people who are coaches, authors, creatives, solopreneurs, as well, as some of the more kind of smaller businesses that are starting out. But in terms of content creation, like in terms of articles and blog posts specifically around that, then certainly I'm open to working with like some of the larger companies who want that kind of thing.
Do you have investors that come to you for products that they would like to possibly invest in? You get to sort of help vet the products?
Not really. That's not really kind of my area. But I think there is a group, I think there's something started out, I think they're called Vegan Investing Club, that I think are looking to do that. And there's another platform, Vevolution, in the UK, that I think are kind of bringing investors and products together. And I know Alicia Robb, who's also a member of the Vegan Women's Leadership Network, who does amazing work. And she's got the Vegan Angel Investors group, where they do virtual regular pitch events. So I think there's kind of a lot of that sort of already happening. But the investors themselves, typically they've already kind of got their eye on the market. I have got a list actually of vegan and vegan friendly investors on my Vegan Business Media website. And that's a very popular post, because often I'm more likely to get entrepreneurs or businesses coming to me saying, how do I get an investor interested? And so I point them to this post. It's got a list of all the vegan and vegan friendly investors, how to pitch them. If I've done an interview with them, that's included. So that's, I think, really helpful for people to know, because sometimes a bit like pitching the media, often business owners, they just don't know how to do it, and they do it the wrong way. So this kind of just gives them a bit of help for free, and they can just, decide who the best investor might be for them. And then they can do it in the right way, because it is a learning curve.
Yeah, I know. Did you interview on your show ever from A Billion Vegans, the founder and CEO of that Amazon marketplace of like vegan goods now?
Oh, I did PR for him, actually. I helped with his equity crowdfunding campaign. Alon.
Yes, I've spoke to him on the phone on a Zoom conference a few weeks ago, and I should have him on the show. But one thing he and I were talking about collaborating, but one thing we had discussed was how all the brands that are coming to him right now, even though they're being sold on his platform, they're in need of funding and investors, and was asking me if I provided counseling to brands. And I'm like, no, I'm pretty busy with the certification process, but this is like a great need. It like these brands need to like go, they need the counseling, they need the investment dollars, they need, I mean, it's a perfect synergistic marriage of all the different platforms that, I mean, it sounds like his brands need a lot of help, frankly. Maybe you could connect. I love this. So what's next for you?
I think at the moment, I'm really keen to grow the Vegan Women's Leadership Network. So I'm busy kind of putting out the content and just attracting people to it. And I guess really for me, it's quite interesting, actually. I was having a chat with my partner, Tracy, today, and we were saying, you need to get comfortable with sales. And this is something I tell people when I'm coaching them or I'm consulting with them, and I'm having to kind of take my own advice at the moment. So I love creating content. So when I first created the network, I was kind of like, right, I pre-sold it, and I had a special offer, and I said, right, if enough people join by the end of April, I think it was, I'll do it. And so I was very much in sales mode, and now I'm kind of in my safe zone, if you like, which is creating content, which I love. But now I've got to, kind of do more, to attract more people to the network. So I've now got to take my own advice and do that, because I think it's important as well in business that you are out of your comfort zone. And I'm sure you would agree with that. Sometimes we can, do things and get kind of, feel safe and secure. And that's nice for a little while. But then, I think we only grow when we get out of our comfort zone. So I'm very keen to, just to have more people join, because, the benefits are amazing. I mean, yes, there's the webinars, but I think also the virtual monthly meetups and the collaborations that are happening and the help and support that's happening via those. It's definitely worth the $15 a month or the $150 for the year. You get 2 months free membership. So I think that's kind of where I'm at the moment. But also letting more people know about my online PR course for vegan business owners and entrepreneurs, particularly, like as you say, some of these smaller brands, like the ones that Alon mentioned. Like, Alon hired me to actually do PR for him, but a lot of brands can't afford that, but they can learn how to do that, because getting in the media, as you and I know, it's free publicity, once you know how to do it. So I'm quite keen to.
I have a background like Jane does as well in mainstream media. So we took our background and we said, enough of mainstream, enough of politics, enough of crime, enough of what people are telling me to write about. I'm going to use the airwaves for things that I care about, for the things that matter. So you're able to take that guidance and help people. And even though we know what we're doing, like I know, I co-hosted the Amazon Prime cooking show, New Day, New Chef, with Jane on season 1, episode 3. And even Jane needed PR help, hired PR help, because even though she's a guru and an award-winning journalist and a go-getter, there's always the benefit of collaboration with others in the industry. Period.
Oh, definitely.
Story. It's like a web. I always say that your net worth is like your network. Your network is your net worth.
Yes, very true. And I love Jane, actually. She's amazing. She's incredible. I first came into contact with her, about 10, maybe more, actually, about 13 or so years ago. And I ended up writing about, or she was included in an article I did for a mainstream publication here. And then I just watched her, and then she came out, and then, she was doing all this amazing stuff with the veganism, had her own show on HLN. So she's kind of like my hero in terms of, vegan women journalists. I mean, look what she managed to achieve in mainstream media, and now rocking it with Jane Unchained. So I love Jane. She's fab.
She's someone that'll teach you to go outside your comfort zone, no matter how uncomfortable it is, and to be fearless in owning it, because that's what she does. I mean, I am always amazed when I'm in her presence at a press conference or anything she wants to cover, how she has no shame in getting up front and personal and close to get the story.
Yes.
Because she wants to reveal the truth. And that's one thing that's wonderful about Jane Unchained News, is she's out there getting the truth that the other mainstream media networks are not giving us right now.
Precisely. Yeah.
Where can people find your book? online on your website?
Yeah, the paperback is available on Amazon and some of the other retailers. The ebook is also available on Amazon and other places, or you can get the ebook directly from veganbusinessmedia.com and get it in 3 different formats at a slightly lower price. And everything else, the online PR course is at veganbusinessmedia.com. And the network is at veganwomensleadershipnetwork.com.
You blow me away even with that, though. I mean, you wrote a book, you've published it, you have it available in all these different formats. Who helped you?
I'd published with my partner. We'd published a couple of books in a totally different other area back in the late 90s, before print on demand actually came up. Then we were commissioned by 2 mainstream publishers to put a couple of anthologies together. So Wiley and Taylor and Francis, which are like really big publishers. So we've had that experience of both self-publishing and mainstream publishers. So by the time I came to, in 2014, by the time I came to put this one together, I decided to, I kind of, knew how I was going to do it. But, obviously a lot of research and I hired professional. I was quite lucky. I won an award for journalism that I did, and it came with a cash prize. So I invested that into that. So I was able to hire, a really good designer, the typeset, person to typeset the layout. I hired an editor because even though I wrote it, you need someone else to edit it. Obviously, I proofread it and read it again myself. But so I did it all very professionally, but definitely hired outside help. I think if you're going to put something like that, in terms of a physical, tangible item, your book, I mean, it's your calling card essentially. So I wanted it to be of high quality and high value. So it was a big year. It was a full year, a full on year. But I think if you're going to do something like that, really just kind of go for it and make it the best that you can.
Mm-hmm. And what's the biggest piece of advice that you have to give to entrepreneurs who are aspiring to do all that you've really accomplished? I mean, you've built a business, you've done well with the media, you've authored a book, you host a successful podcast. So what's your biggest piece of advice? I love you're interviewing all these other successful CEOs and entrepreneurs, but you must have some of the best advice out there.
Look, my main one, I know it sounds kind of twee, but is to actually genuinely believe in yourself, because I think imposter syndrome is very real. And I think particularly probably more so in women, and you don't often see it. I mean, I listen to other podcasts and I've heard women who are like mega successful, like on the outside. And then even they say they don't feel enough, or they kind of feel like they're a fraud and they're going to be found out. And I feel like that sometimes as well. And I'm quite prepared to say that, because I don't actually necessarily want someone looking at me and thinking, because, I do curate my social media, you'll very rarely see a photo of me with my glasses on and no makeup. But I don't want people to just kind of think, oh yeah, she's got it all sussed. It's all really easy and what have you. It is hard. And I absolutely have my days when I just think, oh my God, and I get major imposter syndrome and all the rest of it. So I really think, and I know that I love that you call yourself a spiritual lawyer. And I've gotten certainly back into spirituality myself, and just kind of coming back and literally not identifying yourself with what you do. That's been a big one for me, particularly with journalism. I've done that in the past, just realizing that you are enough, and just be consistent, believe in yourself as well as your product, your service. Even if someone else is doing something similar, only you can do it the way you do it. So just do it.
I've never heard of imposter syndrome. Did you make that up?
Impostor syndrome. No, it's quite a thing. No, it's an actual thing. There was research,
because I can relate to it. I've just never heard.
Yeah, there's an article on the Vegan Women's Leadership Network actually by Jane Harrison, who's an executive coach, and it's why imposter syndrome affects vegan women more. And how to overcome it. And she's got really good practical strategies on how to overcome it. She also did a webinar for members of the network as well, which is really good. So I'll send you a link, but it's absolutely real. Even, as I say, even with really super successful women, I was really surprised at some of the really high level women in particular. Of course, it affects, everybody, but certainly it seems to impact women a lot more. And I don't think people think that, we all look at other people's social media and think, oh, they've got it made. They must be super confident every day and totally believe in themselves, whatever. And, it's not always like that. So I think it's important that we share that side of things as well, in order to, and that's what I love about the network particularly, is that, you know, if someone is feeling like that, you know, they're in a community where people can really lift them up and support them, because I think that's really important. So yeah.
I think that that's super important. I can even myself relate to that, where you go for things that are against the odds, and you already have some of your own self-doubt, and then you have all the doubt around you, compounding that doubt, that you can feel like, oh my gosh, maybe I can't do this. Maybe I am a fraud in some ways. But if you just go for it and you believe in yourself and you own your truth and you're speaking your truth, eventually you have to accept that someone's going to do it. Why not me? Someone's going to achieve this. Why not me? I mean, whatever you do in life, whoever anyone was that was great, they all came to this planet the same way we did. They're all going to leave this planet the same way we will. And they just had a certain level of bravery to them to go for it. So why not me? And I think that's
I love that. It's brilliant.
You can do it too. So how can we, because we're running out of time, how can people best find you, hire you, join the network, and you know, be part of this amazing movement that you're growing for women and vegan business owners?
Oh, thank you. So veganbusinessmedia.com is where you can find out anything related to vegan business. So there's the links to the podcast, the book, my PR course, how to hire me, etc. And there's also free resources in terms of the blog posts on there as well. And then for the network, it's veganwomensleadershipnetwork.com.
What about social media?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter.
As Katrina Fox?
Pretty much Katrina Fox or Katrina Fox Vegan. I'm fairly easy to find on the socials, and there's links to all of those on the websites as well. So yeah.
Well, thank you, Katrina. Thank you so much for sharing this hour with me, and I look forward to catching up with you again.
Oh, thank you so much, Carissa. It's been absolutely lovely. I'm very inspired by what you do, and I've really loved this conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'll talk to you soon.